But what about the filter? There's no filter on there. You better put a filter on that or we're all gonna die. I have never seen so many comments about an air filter in anything we've ever, I never would have imagined there'd be so much uproar about not having a filter on our fresh air system that we put in our Jeep. So many of you guys commented about that. I totally wasn't expecting it. But I think we need to have a conversation about air filters. Now, before I do this, before I say anything, I don't want to be misquoted or misunderstood here. I'm not saying that an air filter is not important. I'm not saying that an air filter is not a good thing to have. An air filter is very important, and it is a very good thing to have, especially a quality, clean air filter. You'll never get any argument from me about that. But at some point, you have to insert a little common sense into the equation. Vehicle use, where you're using it, how you're using it, has so much to do with whether or not you can get away without a filter. So here's the thing. With this vehicle, its primary use is to be driven just locally around town here, maybe find a little trouble on the street, go to and from the drag strip. The environment that this thing is going to be used in is devoid of any major atmospheric issues and may hurt the engine. Now, let's understand something. Here's a dirty air filter, right? The dirt that's trapped in this filter, so this has probably got like 30,000 miles on it, right? Local use around here. So the dirt that's trapped in this filter right here, all right, the volume of it and the type of dirt that's trapped in this filter, I'm not exaggerating now, I'm just telling you like it is. You could take an internal combustion engine and run it for all of time, right? Like from the Big Bang until the Big Bang that takes us all out, right? That billions, trillions of years. You could run it for literally all of eternity, okay? All of eternity. And if that is what's caught in this filter is the only impurities, or are the only impurities that are going to get passed through the engine, you'll never hurt it. It'll just, those fine bits of dust will just pass through the engine like they never even existed. Even little organic things, bugs, leaves, stuff like that, pass through like they never even existed. You breathe this stuff all the time yourself. You don't have a filter. Think about it, okay? You're going through life, you're going through the same atmosphere, generally speaking, that your vehicle is, and you don't have a filter over your face. See what I'm saying? And what you see in this filter is that, okay, it's just the normal impurities found in the atmosphere. Not a big deal. Now, am I saying that a vehicle doesn't need an air filter? No, because there are occasions, and see again, it's all situational. Where do you use this thing? How do you use it? Let's say you live in a dusty climate, a very dusty climate, like where there's a lot of dirt, like granular dirt in the atmosphere, driving around, blowing around. Yes, let's say you live in a sandy area, okay, where there's a lot of sand getting kicked up as you're driving down the road and suck. Oh, absolutely, sand will destroy your engine. Anything that's hard and granular like that will destroy your engine. Over time, I mean, it's not going to do it the very first, right? Most of it will pass through, but over time, it'll destroy an engine. You go off-roading, and there's a chance that mud, that kind of stuff, dirt is going to get kicked up. Yes, you absolutely need an air filter. But for something like this, the way it's going to be used, where the only things it's going to encounter are what's caught in this filter, no, it's fine. It's fine. And the bigger particles, like the bigger chunks, let's say pebbles that may get kicked up or whatever, Well, on this setup here, there's a mesh. There's a mesh that's going to catch anything that's big. And there's a giant collection area, the whole plenum of, there's a giant collection area there to catch those things and hold them under where this thing's going to be picking up air. So for the normal use that this is going to see, which is around town here, which there's no mud, there's no like sand blowing around, there's nothing like that, and going to and from the drag strip, and the drag strip itself, no, it's fine, right? Now, if I was going to take this thing, let's say for a cross-country trip, and I was going to head into areas that I'm not familiar with, and there could be blowing dust, we're going to go through the Sahara, there's blowing sandstorms and stuff. Well, yeah, absolutely, I'll put a filter on it. I'll just disconnect it from my little coupler here, stick a cone filter right here, turn this, stick a cone filter in it, and done, okay? And now we can drive it, and it's completely filtered. It's not a problem. Trust me on this. I'm doing this my whole life. So, but let's just talk about filters for a second too. The type of filters. So, and I'm not going to get into brands on it. There's K&N, there's all of these different filters. There is a difference between a cheap filter and a high-performance filter. In some cases, in a lot of cases, a proper filter, or proper size filter, can actually improve performance, because what it'll do is it'll smooth the air as it heads over the top of your carburetor. In fact, if you're running without a filter on your car, let's say you've got a race car or hot rod, whatever, and you're running without a filter on it, you're giving up power by not having at least the base plate to the air cleaner assembly, or a velocity stack, something to smooth the air, a stub stack, something to smooth the air as it goes over the top of the carburetor. So a filter, or at least a way to clean and smooth the air as it comes over the top. When I say clean, I don't mean filter, I mean clean the air, make a smoother flow of air over the top of the carburetor. If you're running without something like that, you are giving up power. The biggest mistake I see people make with filters is to use one that's too small. So here's the thing you have to understand about filters, right? It's made up of millions and millions of tiny little micron measured holes. I don't even know how they measure these things. They're just microns, right? Tiny, tiny, tiny holes. If you hold this up to the light, you should be able to see through it. Right? Not see through it, like you should be able to see light through it. That's a classic way to test to see whether a filter is clean or not. But the size of the filter is super important, because all of those micro holes that allow the air through, they have to at least equal the airflow capability of your engine, or you're choking it off. The biggest mistake I see people make is using, let's say they got a 400 cubic inch engine and they have like an 800 CFM carburetor, and they'll use an air filter like this size, and this is one that's intended for a 318 with a 2-barrel carburetor, and they'll use one that's this size. And those holes, all of those little micro holes that are in this, when you add them all up, like the area of those holes, they don't equal the airflow capability of the engine. So at part throttle, let's say at half throttle, at moderate RPM, you'll never see a difference. But when you're on it, well, it can't pull enough air through the tiny holes in this filter to support the airflow needs of the engine, and so it kills performance. The most common thing in the world, you go to any car event where people have got their hoods open, and you'll always see like 90% of them have an air filter on there that's too small. If you look at cars, high performance cars that absolutely require air filters, like let's say dirt track cars or off-road cars, they'll stack these things. They'll take a big high performance filter and they'll stack them 2 and 3 high to get that amount of surface area through the holes, through the microscopic holes, to get enough air flow through those holes to support the high RPM use, the high RPM demands of the engine. So that's really important. But again, you have to use common sense. When can I get away without a filter? Yes, You absolutely can. In the right circumstances, you have to apply common sense, right? Common sense here, I'm not using this in any way that I'm worried about pulling chunks of rocks into into this engine. Nothing I'm going to put this thing through in normal use is going to endanger it in that way. But if I was to take this thing on a road trip or take it to an area where there's going to be a lot of sand, a lot of dirt, possibilities of ingesting granular chunks of things, well, yeah, absolutely, I'll stick a filter on it. Okay, so just relax. It's okay. I know what I'm doing. I've done this before. And the fine stuff that's caught in this filter, which is representative of the environment this thing's going to be used in, will never, ever, 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 ever hurt it. Okay? So that's it. All right. That's all I want to say about filters. I'll see you tomorrow.